I have a rare Rh-negative blood type. After becoming an adult, I used my blood to save 99 families. But this time when the hospital sent me a distress message, I refused. Just because when I was 6 years old, my mother committed suicide because my father had an affair. A medium told me that for my mother's soul to find peace, a blood relative must complete 100 good deeds. So after becoming an adult, I joined the blood donation volunteers, all for my mother. Over these 20 years, I've saved young mothers hemorrhaging from difficult births, saved construction workers with steel rods piercing their chests, and saved little girls with relapsed leukemia. No matter how late the hospital called, I would always rush there immediately. This time, the hospital called me again. The patient had a sudden massive brain hemorrhage. In this city, I was the only one who could provide Rh-negative blood. I looked at the patient information the hospital sent to my phone. Even though we hadn't seen each other in years, I still recognized the familiar features in the photo. My chest felt suffocated and painful. I suddenly remembered the image of my mother dying with her eyes open. Taking a breath, I pressed reply to the message. Find someone else. I'm not feeling well. Less than half a minute after I sent the message, my phone rang. The caller ID showed it was the director of the blood department at City Central Hospital. I pressed the answer button and put it on speakerphone. Miss Antoine, please, I'm begging you. The patient really can't wait. The director's voice on the other end was extremely anxious. That child is only 6 years old. The brain hemorrhage is very serious. Surgery must be performed within 8 hours. We've checked all the blood banks in the city. Only your Rh-negative blood can save a life. I stared at my mother's photo on the table. My tone was calm, without any emotion. Director, I told you, I'm not feeling well. If you're not feeling well, we can send a private car to pick you up. We can give you a comprehensive examination first. Miss Antoine, this is a human life. You're the most caring volunteer in our state. You can't just watch someone die. I laughed coldly. Being a volunteer means I have the right to refuse at any time. I don't owe you anything, and I certainly don't owe that child anything. After saying this, I hung up directly and pressed the power button. The room instantly became quiet. I looked at my mother's gentle face in the photo. My fingers clenched tightly into fists. Just one more good deed and my mother could find peace. But this 100th good deed, I would absolutely never do for my enemy's son. But I was thinking too simply. Less than 10 minutes later, my backup work phone suddenly lit up. Only a few important clients and the community manager knew this phone number. I looked at the unknown number on the screen and pressed answer. Is this Miss Antoine? The male voice on the other end was extremely anxious and accusatory. I'm a reporter from the state TV station. The entire internet is looking for you right now. The 6-year-old boy with brain hemorrhage at City Central Hospital. Why won't you save him? Do you know your behavior is equivalent to murder? I gripped my phone tightly, my eyes completely cold. Murder. By your logic, that child's biological parents murdered someone 20 years ago. Why don't you investigate that? I hung up directly and blocked the number. I opened my tablet next to me and clicked on the local news live stream. On the screen was the scene outside the emergency room at City Central Hospital. A well-dressed woman was kneeling on the floor outside the emergency room door, crying hysterically. Please everyone, help me. Help me find that volunteer. As long as she's willing to donate blood to save my son, I'll kowtow to her. I stared at that face on the screen. Even if she turned to ash, I would recognize her. Garcia. In the footage, a middle-aged man in a suit walked into frame. He bent down to help Garcia up, facing the reporter's camera with a face full of indignation. I don't understand what this volunteer is thinking. The hospital said she's donated blood for free 99 times, so why won't she save my son? If it's about money, I can give her 1 million, 10 million. Gabriel spoke through gritted teeth to the camera. A 6-year-old child is lying inside waiting for his life to be saved. How can she be so selfish? I hope all the netizens can help me find this person. I want to ask her to her face if her conscience has been eaten by dogs. The comments in the live stream instantly exploded. This volunteer is disgusting. The 99 times must be fake data. When it comes to the real thing, she shrinks back. Dox her. Force her to donate blood. Right, we can't let this cold-blooded animal get away with this. I watched the screen full of vicious cursing, a cold smile appearing at the corner of my mouth. I'm selfish? I'm cold-blooded? For my mother's reincarnation, I saved 99 complete strangers who had nothing to do with me. But this family alone absolutely doesn't deserve my blood. Suddenly, violent pounding came from the door. I walked to the entrance and looked through the peephole. It was my fiancé Jordan. He looked anxious, his suit jacket wrinkled from running. I opened the door, and he grabbed my shoulders, gripping so hard it hurt. Antoine, what the hell are you doing? The whole internet is tracking down that Rh-negative blood volunteer's IP. Other people don't know, but I know that blood type and donation record is you. He frowned tightly, his eyes full of confusion and anger. You usually save even stray cats. Why are you refusing to save a child now? I coldly pushed his hands away. He had no idea about my past family affairs. He only knew I was a good person who loved doing charitable deeds. I won't save him. Jordan, mind your own business. His eyes widened in disbelief. That's a human life. Didn't you always say you wanted to accumulate blessings for your deceased mother? If you refuse to save someone now, can your mother's spirit rest in peace? Enraged, I slapped him across the face. If I save him, then I won't be worthy of seeing my mother. Get out. Jordan covered his face, looking at me in shock. Antoine, you've gone crazy. You're going to drown in society's criticism. He turned abruptly and left, slamming the door hard. The room fell silent again. Just then, my tablet emitted a series of notification sounds. A video call request from a social media app. The caller was the largest local media account. I knew they had used hacking methods to lock onto my backend account. I could have just turned it off. But I didn't. I wanted to see with my own eyes the desperate looks on those murderers' faces. I turned off the camera and accepted the audio-video call. The screen split in two. One half was completely black, the other half showed the scene outside the emergency room. The reporter immediately handed the phone to Gabriel. Volunteer, can you hear us now? The reporter's voice carried a hint of threat. Millions of people across the internet are watching this live stream. Please give an explanation. Gabriel snatched the phone, his face almost pressed against the camera. I'm Gabriel, chairman of Gabriel Corporation. Come to City Central Hospital right now. Whatever conditions you have, I'll agree to all of them. But if you dare make my son miss the 8-hour surgical window, I'll make sure you can't survive in this city. Looking at this man who shared the same blood flowing through his veins as me, I laughed outright. Mr. Gabriel, is this your attitude when asking for help? Garcia suddenly pushed into the frame. Her hair was disheveled, her eyes swollen like walnuts. Volunteer, please don't listen to him. He's just too anxious. I'm a mother. I'm kneeling before you. My child is only 6 years old. He's so well-behaved and obedient. You can take my life if you want. Please save him. I looked at her coldly. 20 years ago, she also wore this pitiful appearance, begging my mother to let them be together. And Gabriel stood beside her, accusing my mother of being unreasonable. That night, my mother jumped from the 18th floor. Thinking of this, I spoke emotionlessly. Karma always comes. The live stream comments momentarily froze. Garcia's face instantly turned deathly pale. What do you mean? Are you some kind of psycho taking revenge on society? My son has never hurt anyone. What did he do wrong? Gabriel also completely exploded in rage. You vicious woman. You're using my son's life to extort us, aren't you? I'm telling you, if you don't come today, I will dig you out and tear you to pieces. I continued typing. Your son's life is worthless in my eyes. Save your money to buy him a coffin. I disconnected directly. The internet completely crashed. Hashtag cold-blooded volunteer curses sick child hashtag. Hashtag Gabriel Corporation heir, in critical condition hashtag. Hashtag citywide search for Rh-negative blood volunteer hashtag. These topics instantly dominated all trending lists. The netizens' anger reached its peak. My work phone began to flood with text messages. All were death threats from unknown numbers. Die a terrible death, bitch. I've already found your approximate address. You're dead. This kind of person doesn't deserve to live. The police should just forcibly extract her blood. I sat in the dim room, quietly looking at my mother's face in the photo. Mom, do you see? The people who killed you are about to experience the taste of losing a loved one too. At this moment, there were less than 4 hours left before that child would be brain dead. The director of City Central Hospital sent me another long text message. Miss Antoine, the child's heart rate has already begun to drop. Mr. Gabriel guarantees he absolutely won't hold you accountable for what you said in the live stream. We've already arranged the best car and bodyguards to pick you up. Even if it's for your own reputation, please come forward. I finished reading the message and casually deleted it. I stood up and walked to the closet. Since they wanted to see me so badly, and the entire city was seeking justice for them, then I would personally make a trip to the hospital. I wanted to stand outside the emergency room and watch that child take his last breath with my own eyes. Pushing open the door to the emergency room floor at City Central Hospital, the corridor was already packed with people. Everywhere were internet celebrities holding up phones live streaming, and reporters from various media outlets. Seeing me appear, camera flashes instantly lit up like a sea. Gabriel and Garcia immediately pushed through the crowd, desperately rushing toward me. So many years had passed, my features had long since matured. Plus I'd maintained a cold expression for years. My temperament had changed dramatically. Gabriel's eyes were completely red. He only looked at the volunteer badge on my chest, not carefully examining my face at all. In fact, if he had been slightly calmer and looked carefully, he could have completely recognized from my current features his once most despised daughter. Volunteer, you finally came. Gabriel excitedly reached out to grab me. I stepped aside, looking at him with utter disgust. Mr. Gabriel, speak plainly. Gabriel glanced at the dense cameras around us and lowered his voice. It's too chaotic here. Let's go to the director's office to talk privately. I stood in place, coldly refusing. Let's talk right here. Didn't you want the whole internet to cyberbully me? Then let's livestream to the whole internet now and talk in front of everyone. Gabriel's face stiffened, a flash of displeasure in his eyes. But for the sake of his son in the emergency room, he could only forcibly swallow his anger. He waved at his assistant, and cameras from all the major media outlets instantly aimed at us. Volunteer, whatever conditions you have, just name them. Gabriel suppressed his anger, putting on the airs of a superior boss. As long as you go in and donate blood to save my son right now, you can name any condition. Just then, Garcia suddenly rushed out and fell to her knees in front of me with a thud. Please, I'm begging you, save Nelson. Gabriel and I have been married for 20 years. We only had this one child. He's only 6 years old. He can't die. I looked at her pretentious face, feeling nothing but disgust. 20 years? The timing was perfect, exactly the year she forced my mother to death. I laughed coldly. Married 20 years before having one son? Haven't you too considered that maybe you've done too many immoral things and received karma? As soon as I said this, the entire corridor gasped. Garcia jerked her head up, looking at me in shock. Gabriel completely lost his temper, pointing at my nose and cursing. How can you be so vicious? My child is only 6 years old, and you're cursing a child. The nearby reporters also raised their microphones toward me, and the live stream comments scrolled even more frantically. This woman is crazy. If she doesn't want to save him, just say so. Why curse people to have no descendants? No manners at all. How is this kind of person qualified to be a volunteer? Just then, the emergency room door opened, and the lead surgeon rushed out in a hurry. Mr. Gabriel, the patient's blood pressure is dropping fast. If the volunteer doesn't donate blood soon, it'll be completely hopeless. Gabriel was so anxious his head was covered in sweat. He could no longer maintain his image. He gritted his teeth, staring at me intently. How much money do you want exactly? 10 million? 50 million? Or 100 million? Just nod, and the money will be transferred to your account immediately. I looked at the indignant reporters outside, then at the live stream frantically cursing me for being shameless about money. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. The whole internet was curious about what I wanted. Gabriel, if I wanted money, those 99 families I saved would have made me the richest person already. Gabriel froze. The comments across the internet also instantly stopped. Everyone looked at me, wanting to know what I really wanted. Then what exactly do you want? Gabriel's voice trembled. I put away my smile, my eyes completely cold. I turned around and pointed at the window at the end of the corridor. For me to save him, sure. But I only have one condition. I stared at the two of them intently. You two right now hold hands and jump together from this 18th floor. Trade both your lives for your son's life. Are you willing? The entire venue fell completely silent. After a brief silence, the whole place exploded. Reporters frantically pressed their shutters, and violent cursing erupted from the crowd. You're an absolute lunatic. This is intentional murder. Call the police and arrest her. Gabriel was shaking with rage, his pointing finger trembling. What kind of psycho are you? Do we have a grudge against you? What deep hatred do you have that you must force our whole family to death? Garcia had completely collapsed on the floor, pointing at me and screaming. You have no heart. You're not even human. I looked down at them condescendingly, a cruel smile appearing at the corner of my mouth. Deep hatred. Yes, exactly that, deep hatred. As long as you meet one person, you'll know exactly what grudge we have. Gabriel laughed in extreme anger, shouting loudly. Fine, bring that person here. I've done business honorably my whole life. I've absolutely never wronged anyone. He patted his chest, brazenly making claims in front of the whole internet. Some people in the livestream comments also chimed in, saying Gabriel Corporation did charity every year. I looked at his hypocritical appearance and felt nothing but disgust. What honorable business, never wronged anyone. I looked at him coldly, then slowly placed my hand on the zipper of my black jacket. Under the gaze of all the cameras and millions of netizens, I yanked open the zipper of my jacket. The jacket fell open, revealing the white t-shirt inside with a huge photo printed on it. The woman in the photo was gentle and beautiful. It was my mother's appearance from 20 years ago, before her death. Gabriel's gaze fell on the photo, and all the color drained from his face. The silence that stretched across the 18th floor corridor of City Central Hospital was absolute, heavy with the weight of 20 years of forgotten history. Gabriel's hand hung in midair, his fingers trembling. The color did not merely leave his face. It seemed to drain from his very soul, leaving his skin a sickly translucent gray. His breathing turned into a wet, rattling gasp as his eyes locked onto the black and white photo printed on my white t-shirt. It was Vivian Antoine. She was 28 in that photo, her hair falling in soft, dark waves around. A face that possessed a gentle, quiet grace, a grace that Gabriel and the woman kneeling beside him had systematically ground into the dust. 3. Vivian. Gabriel's voice was barely a whisper, a ragged scrape of air. He took a step back, his polished leather shoes slipping slightly on the waxed linoleum. Ear. Antoine. I said, my voice steady, cutting through the hum of the air conditioning and the silent, hyper-focused gaze of dozens of camera lenses. I took her maiden name the day the court gave me to her family. But I supposed to. I was just the liability you didn't want in the divorce. The slow, quiet girl who looked too much like her mother to be of any use to your new perfect life. Garcia, still on her knees, froze. She squinted at the photo, then slowly looked up at my face. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. The theatrical tears on her cheeks dried instantly under the heat of the camera lights. Antoine, she stammered, her voice suddenly high and reedy. No, this is a mistake. Gabriel, she was supposed to be in another state. Her family took her away. They took me away because if they hadn't, I would have ended up in the ground, right beside my mother. I said coldly. I looked down at her, my eyes tracing the expensive diamond necklace around her neck, bought no doubt with the money Gabriel had stripped from my mother during their brutal, one-sided asset division. You wanted the world to find the vicious, cold-blooded volunteer who was letting your son die. Well, here I am. Look at me, Garcia. Look at the face of the woman whose mother you pushed off the edge of this very world. A collective murmur broke out among the crowd of reporters. The camera crews, sensing a massive career-defining scoop, began to adjust their angles, zooming in on the raw, unscripted terror on the faces of the city's most prominent philanthropic couple. 3. In the live stream chat, which had been a torrent of vicious, hateful slurs directed at me just seconds prior, the text suddenly paused. Then the comments began to scroll at a dizzying speed, but the tone had shifted entirely. Wait. What is happening? Did she say her mother jumped? 20 years ago. Is this Gabriel's ex-wife? The one who committed suicide? Oh my God, I remember that news. The Vivian Antoine suicide case. It was completely swept under the rug by Gabriel Corporation. Is the volunteer actually his daughter? His firstborn? Gabriel's assistant, a young man who had been holding up a tablet showing the livestream statistics, frantically tapped Gabriel's shoulder. Sir, the stock price of Gabriel Corp just dropped 4% in 30 seconds. We need to shut down the cameras. Now. Shut them off. Gabriel roared, his voice cracking with a mixture of panic and deep primal rage. Turn the cameras off. This is a private family matter. But the reporters didn't move. In fact, several of them stepped closer, thrusting their microphones forward like spears. Mr. Gabriel, is it true? A female reporter from the state TV station asked, her voice sharp and accusatory. Is this volunteer your biological daughter? Did you abandon her after her mother's suicide? Did Gabriel Corporation use its influence to cover up a domestic tragedy 20 years ago? Another reporter chimed in. Get out! Gabriel screamed, his eyes wild, his expensive suit jacket suddenly looking too large for his shaking frame. Get the hell out of here. I stood perfectly still, a silent island in the middle of their chaotic storm. The door to the emergency room opened again. The lead surgeon, his scrubs speckled with tiny dots of dark blood, looked out with a face of sheer desperation. Mr. Gabriel, please, the surgeon called out, his voice cracked with exhaustion. We have less than 3 hours left before the brain damage becomes completely irreversible. The child's intracranial pressure is spiking. If we don't start the transfusion and the decompression surgery now, he won't make it to the morning. Garcia let out a choked, animalistic cry. She crawled forward on her knees, her manicured nails digging into the fabric of my jeans. Antoine, please, she begged, her voice hoarse, her face twisted in a mask of pure agony. I was wrong. I was young, I was selfish, I did terrible things. But Nelson is innocent. He wasn't even born when your mother died. He's a child. He has your blood in his veins. You can't let him pay for our sins. My blood. I laughed, a dry, hollow sound that had no warmth in it. My mother's blood is in my veins. The blood you two spilled on the pavement 20 years ago. You think your son is innocent? He was built on the inheritance stolen from my mother. He was raised in the mansion my mother helped design. Every luxury he has ever known was bought with the blood money you stripped from a dying woman. I leaned down, my eyes locking onto hers. When I was 6 years old, Garcia, I sat on the floor of our apartment for 3 days because my father wouldn't answer the phone. I survived on tap water and stale crackers, waiting for my mother to come home, not knowing she was lying in a cold morgue with her skull shattered. Did you care about a 6-year-old? Child's innocence then? Did you care when you took my father to a resort in the Caribbean while my grandmother was begging for help to pay for a funeral? The corridor went silent again. The reporters, seasoned professionals who had seen every manner of human depravity, looked at Garcia with a cold, disgusted detachment. Gabriel's face turned from gray to a dark, furious red. He stepped forward, his fists clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. You think you're a saint? He spat, his voice trembling with a desperate, defensive venom. You've donated blood 99 times. You did it for your mother's soul, didn't you? You wanted her to find peace. If you refused to save your own brother today, you'll destroy everything you've built. Your mother's soul will never find peace. She'll be dragged down to hell because of your selfishness. I looked at him, my expression completely blank. You still don't understand, do you, Gabriel? I said softly. My mother's soul is already at peace. She died knowing she was loved by her daughter. The 99 families I saved. I didn't do it to buy her a ticket to heaven. I did it because I wanted to prove to myself that the blood in my veins could be used for something beautiful, despite coming from a monster like you. I took a step back, my eyes moving to the window at the end of the hall. The city lights of Chicago blinked in the distance, cold and indifferent. But this 100th deed, this is the one that matters. And I am choosing to make this deed an act of justice. A life for a life, I repeated, my voice clear and loud enough for every camera to pick up. You want my blood? You want to save your son? Then pay the price. One of you or both of you, take that window. Show the world how much you love your child. Trade your sins for his future. You're insane, Gabriel yelled, his eyes darting to the window. It was a standard high-rise window, heavily reinforced but capable of opening wide enough for a body to pass through. This is extortion. This is incitement to suicide. Police, why aren't you arresting her? Two police officers who had been stationed at the end of the corridor to keep the peace stepped forward, but they looked incredibly uncomfortable. One of them, an older officer with gray hair, cleared his throat. Mr. Gabriel, there is no law that forces a citizen to undergo a medical procedure or donate blood, the officer said, his voice flat. And Miss Antoine is not physically forcing anyone to do anything. She is simply stating her conditions for a voluntary donation. We cannot arrest her for refusing to give her blood. She's asking us to jump, Garcia screamed, her voice cracking into a high-pitched wail. She's telling us to kill ourselves. How is that not a crime? It's a choice, I said. Just like the choice you gave my mother 20 years ago when you sent her those photos of the two of you in her bed. Just like the choice you gave her when you told her she was a useless, broken woman who deserved to be replaced. I turned to Gabriel. You told the cameras that if it was about money, you would give me 10 million, 50 million, 100 million. You boasted about how honorable you are. But when the price is your own skin, you shrink back like the coward you've always been. I have a company to run. Gabriel stammered, his eyes darting frantically around the room, looking for an escape, an ally, anything. Thousands of employees depend on me. If I die, the company collapses. Nelson needs a father to inherit the estate. And what about you, Garcia? I asked, turning my gaze to the woman on the floor. You said you were a mother. You said you would kowtow. You said I could take your life if I wanted. Here is your chance. The window is right there. Show me the grand, maternal love you've been bragging about on social media. Garcia froze. Her breath came in short, shallow pants. She looked at the window, then at her husband, then at the closed door of the emergency room where her son was slowly dying. For a second, a flicker of genuine terror passed over her face. She didn't move. She didn't stand up. She slowly shrank back, her body curling away from the window, her hands clutching her own chest. She loved her luxury, her status, and her own skin far more than she loved the child she had used as a trophy of her victory over my mother. I said, a faint, sad smile appearing on my lips as I looked at the cameras. This is the perfect, loving family the internet was defending. When the bill comes due, they won't pay a single cent of their own blood. Just then, a commotion broke out at the elevator doors. Jordan, my fiancé, pushed through the crowd of reporters. His face was pale, his eyes wide with a mixture of shock, realization, and deep, crushing shame. He had been watching the live stream on his phone as he drove back to the hospital. Antoine. He breathed, his voice barely audible. He looked at the photo on my t-shirt, then at the cowering figures of Gabriel and Garcia. I didn't. No. Oh my God, Antoine, I'm so sorry. I didn't know what they did to you. I looked at him, my eyes cool and detached. You didn't need to know, Jordan, I said. You just needed to trust me. But the moment the world began to raise its voice, you chose to stand with the crowd. You chose to call me crazy because it was easier than standing beside a woman who was being hunted. I was worried about you, he stammered, reaching out a hand, but he stopped himself, his fingers curling into his palm. I didn't want you to be destroyed by the media. The media doesn't destroy people, Jordan, I said, turning my back to him. People destroy themselves. The media just provides the lights. The lead surgeon stepped out of the emergency room once more. His face was grim, his eyes hollowed out by the sheer weight of the tragedy unfolding behind the double doors. It's over, the surgeon said, his voice flat and devoid of hope. The entire corridor fell into a dead, suffocating silence. Garcia let out a sharp, choked gasp. No, what do you mean? The 8 hours, there's still an hour left. The intracranial pressure caused a massive herniation of the brainstem, the surgeon explained, his voice sounding like a machine reading a report. The patient's pupil reflexes are gone. His heart rate has dropped to 30 beats per minute. Even if we perform the surgery right this second, there is no longer any brain function to save. He is clinically brain dead. Garcia let out a long, blood-curdling shriek that echoed off the sterile tiles of the corridor. She threw herself onto the floor, her hands clawing at the polished linoleum, tearing her own nails until they bled. Nelson, my baby, my beautiful baby. Gabriel stood frozen, his eyes wide, his mouth slightly open. His hands slowly dropped to his sides. The great, powerful chairman of Gabriel Corporation, the man who believed he could buy his way out of any tragedy, looked like a hollow, empty suit. He had lost his heir. He had lost his legacy. And worst of all, he had lost it. On live television, with millions of people watching the slow, meticulous dissection of his hypocritical life. He slowly turned his gaze to me, his eyes filled with a desperate, venomous hatred. You killed him, he hissed, his teeth clenched, his body shaking. You're his sister. You had the blood. You killed him. No, I said, my voice quiet but incredibly clear. I took off my volunteer badge and let it drop onto the floor, where it landed with a soft, plastic click, beside Garcia's bloody fingers. You killed him 20 years ago, Gabriel. You just didn't receive the bill until today. I turned and walked toward the elevators. The crowd of reporters, which had been so aggressive and loud when I first arrived, silently parted to let me through. No one tried to stop me. No one thrust a microphone into my face. They only watched me with a quiet, stunned reverence. The live stream comments had turned into a digital graveyard, filled with thousands of users expressing a mixture of horror, regret, and a sudden deep understanding of why a daughter would choose to become an executioner. As I stepped into the elevator, Jordan tried to follow me, but I gently pressed the close door button and looked him in the eyes. Goodbye, Jordan, I said. The elevator doors slid shut, sealing me into a quiet, peaceful container as it descended to the ground floor. I walked out of the hospital lobby, the cool night air hitting my face like a splash of cold water. I took a deep, clean breath, feeling the heavy, suffocating knot that had lived in my chest for 20 years finally begin to loosen. But as I walked toward my car, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text message from a number I didn't recognize, but the style of the writing was familiar. It was the medium, the old woman who had told me about the 100 good deeds 20 years ago. The debt is paid, child. But the scale is not yet balanced. The 100th deed must be an act of life, not death, for the circle to be complete. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding slightly. I looked back at the towering glass structure of the hospital, its 18th floor glowing with a cold blue light. I knew she was right. If I walked away now, I would be free of Gabriel and Garcia, but I would also be tethered to their tragedy forever. My 100th deed would be defined by their son's death, not my mother's peace. I pulled up my work phone and dialed the number of the director of the blood department at City Central Hospital. Miss Antoine? The director's voice came through, sounding incredibly tired and defeated. I heard about Nelson. I'm so sorry for everything that happened. Director, I said, my voice steady and calm. Are there any other patients in your hospital right now who have Rh-negative blood and are in need of a transfusion? There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could hear the rustling of papers, followed by the rapid tapping of a keyboard. Yes, the director said, her voice suddenly rising with a flicker of hope. We have a young mother in the ICU on the 3rd floor. She had a severe postpartum hemorrhage 3 hours ago. We've been trying to source Rh-negative blood from the neighboring county, but the delivery truck is delayed due to the storm. She has a newborn baby girl waiting for her. I looked up at the sky, a soft, genuine smile finally spreading across my face. Tell the ICU to get ready, I said. I'll be up in 2 minutes. The donation room on the 3rd floor was quiet, devoid of the flashing lights and screaming crowds of the 18th floor. I lay on the comfortable leather chair, the sterile needle sliding into the vein of my left arm with a familiar cold pinch. I didn't wince. I had done this 99 times before, but this time, the blood flowing through the clear plastic tube looked brighter, purer, completely free of the dark, heavy shadow of my past. As the bag began to fill with the deep red fluid, I looked out the window at the quiet, sleeping city. In my mind, the image of my mother dying with her eyes open began to change. I no longer saw her lying on the cold pavement. Instead, I saw her sitting on the porch of our old house, her hair caught in the warm summer breeze, her gentle, beautiful face smiling down at me as she reached out a hand to tuck a stray strand of hair behind my ear. "I did it, Mom," I whispered to the empty room. 100. The door to the donation room opened softly, and the director stepped in, carrying a small paper cup of warm orange juice and a cookie. She looked at me with a face full of a quiet, profound respect that went far deeper than any of the superficial praise I had received over the past 20 years. "The transfusion was a success, Miss Antoine," she said, her voice quiet and gentle. "The mother's vitals have stabilized. She's awake and she's holding her daughter." "Thank you, Director," I said, taking the cup from her hand. The next morning, the news of the whipping boy tragedy and the revenge of the firstborn dominated the headlines, but I didn't read them. I had already deleted my social media accounts, blocked Gabriel's number, and changed my residence to a small, quiet town on the outskirts of the state. Gabriel Corporation's stock continued to plummet, eventually leading to a federal investigation into their financial cover-ups and past domestic abuses. Gabriel and Garcia were forced to sell their mansion and step down from their positions, their names forever associated with the ultimate, terrifying cost of a parent's cowardice. But to me, they were no longer enemies. They were just ghosts, empty, hollow things wandering through a world that had finally learned the truth about their golden facade. I sat on the porch of my new cottage, the morning sun warming my face as I watched a small bluebird build a nest in the branches of a nearby oak tree. My mother's soul was finally at peace. And so was mine.